Can we see this good? Awesome. Okay, so today I'm here to talk to you guys about my life and my job, and most importantly, my most favorite thing on the world, which is mushrooms. Specifically, we're going to talk about the mushrooms in New Brunswick and just mushrooms in general. So, a really, really, really long time ago, somewhere around 800 billion years ago, or 800 million years ago, or 1 entire billion years ago, mushrooms were some of the very first organisms to come up onto land. Some people think because they can survive in outer space that that's where mushrooms came from, because they're not really very closely related to anything else on this planet. They're their own unique thing. And actually, mushrooms are more closely related to animals than they are to plants. But even so, they're still super duper unique. A very long time ago, super long time ago, when everything was just water and volcanoes, the land was rock. It was all rock. So when mushrooms came up onto land, they actually learned how to turn rock into soil. And if they had not learned how to do that, we wouldn't have soil. And if we didn't have soil, we wouldn't have trees or plants or the beautiful oxygen rich environment that we have now. So mushrooms are actually really, really important to life on this planet. Even, let's just say, mushrooms were around and they did all that, but for whatever reason, they just disappeared from the face of the planet. We would be buried under all of these rocks and branches and logs and trees and all of this stuff. I actually got a little bit ahead of myself. I'm just going to go back for a second. So, mushrooms, in addition to being super important for making soil, for making the world appropriate for things to grow and thrive, mushrooms also have other really, really important jobs in the environment. So, mushrooms are actually super important as well for living plants and trees. They need the mushrooms. There is a network underground of mushrooms, and this network helps trees to talk to each other, to share food with each other. Every single plant on this entire planet needs mushrooms to thrive. So yeah, most people don't know that. Mushrooms, super duper important. We wouldn't have the planet that we have right now if it weren't for mushrooms. Okay, here we go. So this is me. My name's Jessica. My job is to teach people about food and wild food and mushrooms and plants and all of the different things that they can do with the wild food that they find. This is me right here. And oopsie, be patient with me, guys. I don't technology very well. So this picture was taken very early in the spring, and I had not seen any mushrooms all winter long. And this is the very first gigantic patch of mushrooms that I found this year. So I was really, really, really happy to see it. I'm also the president of the Mycological Society in New Brunswick. And that is just a group of people who love mushrooms and who celebrate mushrooms. I'm also a mama. These are my kiddos. And this right here is the biggest mushroom that I've ever found in my entire life, even to this day. We found it years ago. And at this time, this is my youngest kiddo, and she was about 70 pounds, and this mushroom was 50 pounds. So this mushroom was almost as big as my youngest kiddo. It was huge. It took me and my mom, both of us, to pick up this mushroom and put it in her car. It was so big and heavy. This is my mom, and she found a whole bunch of mushrooms this day, and there they are in her basket. So when I was really, really little, my mom taught me how to pick mushrooms, and we used to pick stuff in our backyard and bring it in and cook it. And we would go to the library and learn about plants and mushrooms together. When she had kids, she decided that one of the most important things for her is that her kids be able to have a connection with the land that's all around us, and that if anything ever were to happen where we would get lost, or if anything ever were to happen, that we would be able to take care of ourselves, that we would be able to feed ourselves when we're grown-ups. We would be able to find the things that we needed if something ever were to happen. It was really, really important to her. So there's food literally everywhere, all over the place, all the time. This right here is a black walnut tree that I found. I was at Service New Brunswick looking into getting a driver's license, and I left and I was walking up the street and I found a black walnut tree. This is my first time meeting a black walnut tree, and I was really, really surprised to see one downtown. But I really shouldn't have been all that surprised because there's food all over the place. One of my favorite things to do when I'm out teaching a group of people is I find a spot that has a lot of stuff and I say, in that little one spot right there, there's 15 things you can eat. And that's just how it is. There's stuff all over the place. I can't even really walk to the store without coming back with a whole bunch of stuff. And this happens all the time. This is normal. Here's a collection of things that I brought home very early in the spring. I went out with some of my friends, and I've got a big old basket of mushrooms and a whole bunch of beautiful herbs and wild plants for eating. This is the kind of stuff that I bring home all the time. I have a gigantic cupboard that I fill with things that we can eat during the winter when the wild things are not growing. So my business is called Enchanted Mushroom Forest. And this is a class that I had a few years ago. I take people out into the woods and I show them what is safe to eat and what is not safe to eat. And I teach them about what they can do with them, things they can make with them. I'm also a herbalist. So that means I teach people how to use plants to keep their bodies in good shape. So we make herbal remedies with the wild things that we find. I'm also a mushroom ID specialist. So I specialize in safely identifying wild mushrooms. And I also work with poison control as an identification specialist for them as well. So when I work with poison control, what I do is when there's a person or a kid or an animal who's eaten a plant or a mushroom that they don't know what it is, I help them figure out what plant or mushroom it was. And then that helps them, the doctors and veterinarians, figure out how to help that person. So it's really, really important when you guys are done watching my video that you know that not everything that grows in the wild is safe. Okay. There's a lot of things out there that are really, really poisonous. So you can't just go around picking something and eating it because you could hurt yourself. So make sure that you talk to an expert. If you want to learn about wild food, ask your mom or your dad to help you get in touch with somebody who can help you make sure that you're being safe. This right here is the most beautiful deadly mushroom that I have ever found in my entire life. So as you can see, I'm touching it. So you can touch wild mushrooms. It won't hurt you unless you eat it. But this right here is the deadliest mushroom in New Brunswick. It's called a destroying angel. And this was the biggest one I've ever found. This is just a baby. When he gets big, he sprouts up and he opens his cap. And this guy probably would have been as big as my arm if he had been allowed to grow bigger. He was really, really big. So when I was a teenager, I kind of stopped hunting for wild food. It wasn't really important to me at that time in my life. And I grew up and I had my kids, And I still made remedies in my kitchen for my body to keep my body strong and healthy, but I didn't really pick any wild food anymore. And I started to go through some stuff, and I was feeling really anxious and really depressed. I had been through a lot of stuff when I was a kid and a teenager, and it just made things really hard for me, and I wasn't handling it very well. So I decided that it would be good for me to get back into the woods and try to find some things that could help my body and my brain feel strong and happy again. And talking to a lot of people, I kind of figured out that I'm not the only one who feels that way. And a lot of people kind of feel disconnected in the society that we live in today. We're really far away from nature most of the time. And people just really want to get back out there and enjoy time outside. It's so good for you to be outside. There are actually microbes in the soil and in the trees and in the rotting leaves that actually help your brain to feel happier. And just being out there in the woods is so peaceful. And collecting wild food is one of the ways that you can kind of feed your body really good things, but also be in a really peaceful place. And it's just really good for you. And everybody that I run into who wants to learn about it was just really, really excited. So I wanted to start showing people things. So I had to be better at what I was doing. If I was going to teach somebody else, I wanted to be more confident in my knowledge. So I sought out a lot of classes with local experts, and I started to learn more and more. After a while, I felt confident enough that I started to just kind of take people with me. I put messages up on social media like I'm going out into the woods to pick some wild mushrooms. Does anybody want to come with me? And I started to take people out just for free, for fun, just to share my love of nature and the things that I enjoy doing. And after about 4 or 5 months, people actually started offering to pay me for it. They said, "This is so valuable. You should really start doing this to make some extra money for yourself." So I found a business program through a local organization called the YWCA, and I took this. It was a 6 week business program. They taught me like all of the official paperwork and the less outsidey parts of running this business. They taught me that, and they taught me how to be like confident and comfortable, and I launched my business. I didn't really expect it to be more than something I did on the side, just kind of like a passion project for fun, to kind of feed my heart and my soul. But so many people want to be outside, and so many people want to reconnect with nature and feed their body good things and do those things for themselves. So about 2 years ago, it ended up being my full-time job. So this is what I do now all the time. One of my most favorite things about this job is that it's one of the newest sciences. We don't know very much about mushrooms at all. We're constantly growing and changing, and new things are being discovered and changed every single day. It's a very young science, so there's still so much to learn and to figure out. And this right here is a mushroom. It's a toxic mushroom. It's called a poison champagne amanita, and I found it in Fredericton, and it has actually never been found in New Brunswick. So I dried it, and I'm sending it to a gentleman who studies this type of mushroom, and he's going to expand the scientific data to include New Brunswick in the home of this mushroom. So now we know, because of my finding it, that it grows in New Brunswick. So this is really cool, and this happens all the time. Another super cool thing is that most of the discoveries in mycology are made by citizen scientists. So this is people who just love mushrooms and love science, and they go out and they make discoveries. And the science is growing mostly by these citizen scientists. So this right here is an annual foray. So this is for the Mycological Society, the group that I'm the president of. And this is our annual foray. This is when we get together once a year and we go out and we pick mushrooms and we put them out on tables and we learn about them and we talk about them. This is the kind of thing that helps us to make new discoveries, and we get to hang out and nerd out together about mushrooms, and it's very exciting and I love it. Another awesome thing is that the experts are really, really easily accessible. So when I was growing up, when I was learning about this, uh, me and my mom had to go to the library to learn, and we had to check out books, and we weren't sure if what we were learning was right, and there was a lot of like questions, and we didn't really have anybody we could lean on. It ended up so that we only really hunted one or two mushrooms just because we were so nervous about whether we were seeing things right or whether we were learning things right, because we were just kind of reading it from a book. But now there are these beautiful, wonderful groups, foraging groups on different social medias. This is one that I help run. It's called Mushroom Hunting New Brunswick. And this is a group where you can go and you can sign on and you can learn about mushrooms. You can post pictures of mushrooms and have them identified by experts. The people who are experts have this little tag underneath their name, so you can tell that they're an expert. So you can learn really, really easily one on one with experts like me. Also, there are bigger groups, worldwide foraging mushroom groups, like this one here with 300,000 members. This guy right here is one of the world's authorities on the DNA of mushrooms. And he's right here. I work with him, and you could just go on social media and send him a message asking him about mushrooms, and he'll answer you. And he's one of the worldwide authorities on mushroom DNA. What other science can you just log on to social media and send a message to a scientist and be like, hey, I have this question about your science? I've never met another science that you can do that with. That's one thing that makes mushrooms really, really cool. Also, there are really awesome apps that can help you explore the outside and learn and grow in your mushroom or plant identification journey. So this one is called Seek by iNaturalist. iNaturalist is really, really cool because you can take a picture of an outdoor thing, whether it be a mushroom or a plant or even an animal or a bug, and you can put it on iNaturalist, and iNaturalist will give you an idea of what it might be. And then a person will come along, an expert will come along and say, yep, that's what your bug is, or yep, that's what your plant is, or yep, that's what your mushroom is. So it's really, really cool because you can keep track of all of the things that you see when you're outside and learn how to identify them. So this right here, we're going to take a second and we're going to talk about mushroom identification. When you're learning how to meet a mushroom and how to figure out what it is, there's no trick. There's no rule that you can look at a mushroom and be like, oh, that's a safe mushroom or that's not a safe mushroom. The only way to know whether a mushroom is safe or not is to know exactly what mushroom it is. So I like to call it making friends with a mushroom. This mushroom here is my very, very good friend. This is called a lobster mushroom. I did a mushroom school with the guy. I went out into the cabin in the woods with my mom, and we learned about mushrooms in the woods. It was a mushroom school. It was very cool. And when he took me out for our very, very first mushroom hunt, he told me, look on the road for lobster tails flopping around. And I find they really do look like a lobster tail, just kind of popping out of the ground. They also smell like lobsters or seafood, which is really, 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 really cool. It's a super unique mushroom. That's one of my favorite things about it. When you're starting to learn about foraging and about mushrooms and plants, it's really, really important that you pick mushrooms that are easy to identify, that are really unique and really distinct. Like this lobster mushroom, there's no other mushroom that looks like this, that's smooth and red and white inside, just like lobster meat, and that smells like seafood or lobsters. So, this is a great choice for a mushroom friend for one of you guys. And yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys love mushrooms as much as I do.
Thank you, Jessica. That was wonderful. Big round of applause. And look at you, right on time.
Oh,
We always
awesome.
we always love to we always say it's between 30 and 45 minutes for a class, and a lot of people go over, but certainly we would love to hear if you have any questions. I know I already have questions. I think we just have a couple people in the chat there just writing interesting. One thing that really was exciting for me to hear about was the difference in when you were growing up and now, and how folks are really excited to talk about mushrooms and the ability to make that part of your job. So it must be such a joy to meet people out in nature and just teach them about how to get their food from the earth. And I think I might have to sign up for one of your sessions. So thank you again. I'm going to open up the floor for any questions from students. Certainly, teachers, if a student wants to come on and ask a question to Jessika and they're not shy, we would love to have that as well. I see a couple people typing. Where are some rare mushrooms in New Brunswick? Great question, Mr. Hayward.
So the lobster mushroom is a great edible mushroom, and it's one of the best mushrooms to start with for a beginner because of the distinctness of it and the seafood smell. Nothing else has a presentation like that. So that makes it very, very safe. You're not likely to mix it up with something dangerous.
And wait a minute, for the lobster mushroom, does it really smells like lobster?
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do is make a corn chowder and fry up a bunch of lobster mushrooms and throw it in there and give it to somebody and be like, "Hey, want to try my seafood chowder? Ha ha ha, there's no seafood in it."
So where can we buy the lobster mushrooms?
It's really hard to buy that kind of wild mushroom because it doesn't um have a presentation that you can just grow it. It has a relationship with trees. So you can't just grow it in a farm. You have to go out into the woods and find it. So it's really hard to buy it. You could probably buy some dried online. I think that would be your best bet.
Okay, there's all kinds of questions coming in. So, what are some, we took that one. Where are you located, Jessika?
I'm located in Moncton.
Okay, Moncton. So, Mr. Dumont, if that's something that if you want to contact, you certainly can contact me, and I could probably help arrange for you to speak to Jessika, because I think she certainly would be happy to take some students out for a visit to the grounds.
Oh, yes.
We have another question here. How many people have people always eaten mushrooms? Good question.
Um, it's really hard to know that because we don't have a lot of records apart from like fossils and stones and stuff of things that we found a long time ago. But there are like hieroglyphs and pictures and cave paintings of mushrooms. So I think it's safe to say that mushrooms have always been a pretty big part of our culture.
Excellent. Thank you. These questions are great. How many mushrooms are edible in New Brunswick?
We have hundreds of edible mushrooms in New Brunswick.
Wow. And what is your favorite food to cook with mushrooms? Lily, you're talking my language. We want to know
Oh,
about food.
so my favorite food to cook with wild mushrooms is actually a little bit weird because it's dessert. So there are some mushrooms that are actually really sweet. One of them is called a chanterelle, and it tastes kind of like fruity and nutty, and it's really, really lovely. And I like to make cheesecake with it. You can make a chanterelle cheesecake.
Oh, my soul, I want to wrap you up and put you in my cupboard. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, is there a proper way and a wrong way to pick a mushroom?
No, for a really long time, we thought that mushrooms were a kind of plant. If you look at back in mushroom books from a long time ago, they were called non-flowering plants. So there's this myth that has kind of come along from back then that if you want to pick a mushroom, you have to cut it. Because if you don't cut it, then you take the root out and you're killing it. Okay, well, this isn't true because what we pick from a mushroom is just the fruit. So a mushroom isn't like a plant at all, it lives underground in the soil. And what we pick is just the fruit. So we're not hurting anything by plucking it. And not only that, you want to pluck the whole mushroom because you have to see the whole entire mushroom. Sometimes there's stuff at the bottom of the stem that you need to see to help you figure out what you have.
Okay. All right. We have Mr. Hayward's class says, after this presentation, we are going out on a mushroom hunt. Where is the best place to find mushrooms?
Oh, that's so exciting. I'm so glad you guys are doing that. The best place to find mushrooms right now, this time of year, is in a mature forest. So you want big trees, ideally like a tree that is almost as wide as like an adult's leg or torso. And you want there to be space in between the trees, and you want there to be um needle trees like conifer trees with pine cones and spruce cones. This time of year, that's best.
Awesome. Thank you. And I have a student, or I shouldn't say I do. Mr. Dumas has a student that would like to ask a question on camera.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I have before found like little smoke like like little round mushrooms and you just pop them up and if you step on them they like explode with what excrete like smoke like particles. What type of
Yep.
mushroom is that?
So those are called puffballs. And when they're babies, they're white and they look kind of like a marshmallow inside. But then they liquefy and they turn inside to what we call spores. And spores are kind of like the seeds of a mushroom. And that's what helps the mushroom to make new mushrooms. So when you step on one of those, the smoke that comes out is the spores, like the seeds. So you're actually helping those mushrooms grow when you do that.
So another thing, are they poisonous like the actual stuff they excrete poisonous at all or
So it's not poisonous, but if you were to stick your face into it and breathe a whole bunch of it in, it would be the same as breathing in smoke because it's like little particles. So it's not oxygen. So you don't want to breathe it in, but it's not poison.
Thank you
thank you
so
very
much.
You're welcome.
One more question. What mushroom grows the biggest in the world?
Well, that depends on what you mean by mushroom, right? So if we're talking about the fruit of the mushroom, that's the part that we pick. There's a mushroom that grows a bit as big as an umbrella. So you could literally use it as an umbrella. It's super long and super big, and it's called termitomyces, and it lives in Asia, and it grows from termite mounds. So it's huge. Like, whoa! I can't. You can't even see my hands on the screen for how big this mushroom is. But if you're talking about the part that grows underground, not the part we see, but the part that helps break down the soil and the wood. There's a mushroom in Oregon that is 3,000 miles underground. And that's technically the biggest organism on the planet.
Wow. That is so neat. Another question from the camera. Absolutely. Go ahead.
What's the most common mushroom in New Brunswick?
The most common mushroom is probably agaricus, which is like the button mushrooms that you get at the store. Those grow wild around here, and they grow in the spring, the summer, and the fall all over people's lawns. So that's probably the most common.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
All right. Well, it's we got one more. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry, I didn't quite get what was it called? The
A
mushroom that I was-
puffball.
A puffball. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Okay, is there anybody else out there that have some mushroom questions? Are there any medicinal uses for mushrooms? Great question, Mr. Ross.
Oh, yeah. There are absolutely medicinal uses for a mushroom. There is a mushroom that, if you're in the woods and you cut yourself, you can use this mushroom to help you stop the bleeding because it has properties that cause your blood to clot on the outside. So you can make a band-aid from this mushroom and it'll stop the bleeding. And it's also antiseptic, so it can clean your wound and prevent infection as well. There's mushrooms that are good for the different organs in your body. There's mushrooms that are good for your immune system. Mushrooms are also really high in vitamin D, which is the vitamin we get from the sun. So, yeah, there's not a lot of sources of vitamin D in the plant world. So, mushrooms are great for that.
Ooh, another one from Mr. Haywood. What is the most dangerous mushroom in New Brunswick?
The most dangerous mushroom in New Brunswick is that cute little white destroying angel that was in my presentation. Yeah, super dangerous, super deadly. Destroying
Awesome.
angel.
Destroying angel. Good name for it.
Right?
I do see someone still typing, but I think we're just about done with questions and just about done with time. Jessika, I just want to say thank you so much. I did not start the recording at the beginning when I did your intro, so I apologize for that. But certainly we will be using this recording and share it so that people can take a look at your work and what you do. I am just going to really quickly probably just repeat who Jessika is, just because we'll have it on recording. So I apologize. Jessika is owner of Enchanted Mushroom Forest and Micro MB president. And she was here for our very first Wildlife Wednesday and talked about and shared her expertise and love for mushrooms. I am somebody that absolutely loves mushrooms as well. I have one question that's a personal question. My mother taught me to peel mushrooms when I was growing up. Is that something that we should do, or is that a step that I can just throw out the window?
No, there's no need to peel mushrooms. Some people do because the skin can be a bit tough, but I don't. You don't have to. One thing that's important though is that you cook all your mushrooms, even the ones in the store.
We can't eat them raw?
You shouldn't eat them raw, no.
Why?
They have compounds in them that need to be cooked, to be broken down, to be used properly by the body. They can be really hard for some folks to digest. They're actually really high in the same compound that lobsters and shrimps use to make their shells.
Wow. There's
Raw
so
mushrooms
many
upset
facts
tummies.
and interesting parts about mushrooms. We need a part B. Lovely. This is so amazing. Thank you so much. Really
You're very
appreciate you
welcome.
coming on and being the first session for Wildlife Wednesday. Folks, if you're interested, next month we are having another session, mental health and bringing mental health into the Wildlife Wednesday sessions next month. So certainly check that out. It's going to be posted at the beginning of the month, so you can just go right back to the website and get the Teams link right there. But again, thank you so much to Chris. Thank you to V as well. And Jessika, we had a ball searching for mushrooms with you today. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, guys, for being online. Oh, wave.